So in this brief video, I want to sort of cover really briefly some of the settings that are used when using groups with forums inside of a course site. So in this particular case, we have an instructor who has said, essentially, I have a lot of students taking the course, but I want them to have the opportunity to discuss the same topics in smaller groups within the course. Now, in an online course, this is really helpful because it means that if you have a set of students, say 30 or maybe even 60 students, it's a little difficult to have 60 students all discussing the exact same topic, especially when you want some of those conversations between students about the content to be much more deeper and go into a whole lot more detail rather than being on the surface level. So in this case, this particular instructor in this particular course has said, for the number of students that I have in the course, I'd like to split it up into, say, 4 total groups. And I think the number of students that are taking the course, there'll probably be about 5 or 6 students in each of those groups, and that will be sufficient enough for the conversations that I want to have happen to be beneficial and deep enough. So in this case, this instructor has gone through and in the course site, they've used the site info area to create groups using the auto groups function so that the course site automatically creates a number of groups, so in this case 4 groups, and then just divides the number of students into those groups accordingly. Now in some cases there's an odd number of students, and so some of the groups may have 5 people and some of them may have 6, or whatever enumeration of the number of students. So in this case then, after setting those groups up in the site info area, I'm coming over here to the forums where those discussions will end up sort of happening. And this discussion, or this instructor has set up, there's actually 4 or 3 primary areas where discussions will happen, but for each of those discussions, there's a number of questions. So in this case here, you can see that this instructor has set up week 1 and has essentially named this according to the group that he's assigned it to. So week 1 will discuss this set of questions, but he also wants this group to discuss the same set of questions here. But what he also wants is that he doesn't want this group to be able to see or engage with this group, and likewise he doesn't want this group here to engage with this group. It's not to say that those groups won't somehow have other conversations around this in some other context of the course, but it's to say that he wants to somehow provide a deeper level of conversation rather than a surface level with so many students in a single group. So how do you go about setting this up? Well, first of all, you go to the site info area and you use the groups function there. You can either use the auto groups, or you can designate students to go in and be in specific groups, or you could elect to have students choose which groups they're in. Once that's done then, and you've gone through and set these the forums up, in this particular case, then how do we keep it so that the Frodo group can only see their content, and how can the Sam group only see their content? In other words, you don't want it to be so confusing that those students that are a member of the SAM group start conversing with the same topic that they're supposed to converse about, but in the wrong group. And so some of the conversation becomes difficult to understand and that sort of thing. So what we do here is we go through and we set these groups up inside info, and then we've created discrete forum areas with exactly the same sets of topics. And now what we're going to do then is go through and set specific permission settings in each of these areas so that things work out the way we want them to. So to do that then, we're going to scroll down here and I'm going to show you what this looks like. I've already set several of these up, and we're going to set this week 4 up for this group called Gandalf. Now notice in week 4, each of the groups, Sam, Gandalf, Aragorn, they're all discussing the same sets of questions. And so this should accomplish the end to what this instructor wants. So in this particular case then, we're going to go into the Gandalf settings for the forum, and we're going to scroll toward the bottom. And what we want to do at the forum level is we want to set the student permission level to none. I know that sounds a little contradictory. Why would you set it to none? That means students won't have any. But the way that permission sets here work is that if the student is actually still a member of, and this group is, let's see, remember here, this group is the Gandalf group. The group that's in Gandalf, the Gandalf group, will have contributor access. So even if they're a member of the student group, and these are all students, if they are a student but they are a member of the Gandalf group, then they'll still have access. So I'm going to hit save here. And just to make sure that this sort of works along the lines of each of the topics, then you would like to think, if I set the settings up here at the forum level, do those sort of precipitate down into the topics? And I think that would actually work if we used the template settings up here in the template area the right way. But because I'm dealing with so many groups and so many topics and so many forums, I'm doing this actually at the forum level and at the topic level. So we'll go in here to the topic settings for this particular topic in this group, and I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to set that student area to none. And then we're going to change the Gandalf group to contributor. Now, because the gradebook item is also an issue here, we're also setting this to week 4 because that's where it fits. So I'm going to continue to do this for each of the Gandalf week 4 topics. There's 4 of them for each of the groups for each week. So I'm going to go down here and set that to week 4, and then we're also going to set that student to none. I will set that to contributor. Now, what I want to do in a couple of in the next segment is I want to show you what does exactly this look like. What does this look like once you've actually got this set up? And there's another thing that we have to go through and do. We've got to go through and make sure that if you're using the lessons area, that those students actually see and have a link to their particular content, so that they can actually get to the content they're supposed to. So if, for example, in lessons, you can go through and you can provide a link to those students, or for those students to get to their forum discussion. Now, alternatively, you could also use the lessons area to specify a link to the forum. Now, this instructor has particularly decided not to do that because they want to make sure the students know to engage in each one of these forums, rather than getting to the forum and then just deciding, hey, I'm just going to choose one and not finish them. Let me give you an example of what this looks like then. So once you've got all this set up, then you want to go back to the lesson where you've got this and provide the appropriate discrete group-specific links to these forums that you need to, if you're using the forums or the lessons area to provide these links. I'm going to go to week 1 just so you can see what this looks like. So in week 1 here, you can see there's a discussion area, and I've already set all of this up. So the permissions are already set for each of these groups, and you can see sort of how this becomes really sort of, wow, there's just a lot of stuff there. And this is the way it looks for an instructor that has an instructor view, where you've gone through and you've created the groups and you've assigned those groups to those particular topics. And so here you have 4 what appears to be the same topic, and it is, but those are discrete to each of these groups. And you can see I've tried to replicate that process all the way down. Now, some of you may be thinking as you're watching this, well, this isn't really good because there's a lot more information there. How do these people know which one they're supposed to click on? Well, this is one of the great things about how the permission sets work inside of Sakai. I'm going to go in here and show you what this looks like. Now, one thing I have to remember is I have to make sure I publish this site here so you can actually see the content that I want you to see here. So let me go ahead and throw this back up here. I'm going to log in as a student, and so I'm here as a student. And we're going to go over to that particular course. I gotta look for it here. I may have logged in too fast as a result of publishing it. So there we go. And so what we're going to do then is this particular student is in one of the groups, and so when that student logs in and goes to the course and goes to week 1 and scrolls down here, if you notice, I'm in the discussion area as this student. So you can see in the discussion area I have only these 4 topics. And if we go back over here to the instructor view and you look at the same discussion area, there's essentially 16 discrete topics there by group and by those topics. And so it can seem confusing, but for the student it will be very straightforward. So if this student happens to click on one of these topic areas, then it goes directly to their topic area. This individual is a member of the SAM group, and so that's the only stuff that they'll see. And so when they get here, they can engage directly in that. They can return to week 1 after they've finished with that, and they can go on to the second topic and engage in that particular topic. So it may seem a little bit confusing, but one of the powerful things about the way that grouping works and what you can do with forms inside of Sakai is use this powerful groupings function and the permission sets that are in forms. I hope that's helpful to someone, and there's obviously lots of other things you can do inside the forms permissions area for topics, and that can be probably explored in lots of other ways. Hope this is helpful to someone.